Thanks. I was actually really curious about what's the dynamic like between federal energy regulators like the FERC and then how they interact with state regulators. So I'm really interested in keying in on this idea of where do a lot of innovative ideas in developing, especially data modernization and energy policy come from? Does the FERC take some of these innovative ideas from the state regulators? Does it primarily come from the federal side of things? How does that dynamic usually work in your experience being a chairman?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think increasingly more than ever, it is important, super important for federal regulators to communicate constantly with our state regulatory counterparts. And, to me, look, we had an awkward period of time during my tenure at the commission where for the first time in a long time, we didn't have a former state regulator on the commission. We currently have two, Willie Phillips and Mark Christie, both come from the state regulatory ranks. Willie from DC, Mark Christie from Virginia. But after Commissioner Rob Powelson, who came from the Pennsylvania Commission, departed, there was about a 3-year period where, I came from the Senate. Now Chairman Glick came from the Senate. Chairman Kevin McIntyre came from a law firm. Commissioner McNamee came from DOE. And so we didn't have a state commissioner on board. And then we all were getting pulled in different directions as the profile on the commission, the spotlight grew more enhanced. And so FERC commissioners weren't as present as at some of the state regulatory events through NARUC and the various regions. NARUC is the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners. And so I think there was some concern, and also FERC was taking some actions, quite frankly, under my tenure in trying to bring some efficiencies to markets that put FERC at loggerheads with the states. But my colleagues and I all worked hard, and despite that, to do what we could to develop our relationships with our state regulatory counterparts. And where that really became essential was during the pandemic, particularly those early days of the pandemic, where we were concerned about reliability and the reliability of the grid, and just working together on issues like when they were coming up with exemptions for certain workers to work during those original days when when we shut down the country, getting linemen classified as essential workers who could go and do the work. That took close coordination with our state regulatory counterparts. And I was so appreciative that we had developed those relationships in advance. And I feel more confident than ever that the current iteration of the commission with 2 state commissioners present will only strengthen and enhance those. I'll note on these big transmission reforms that FERC is undertaking, they are taking great lengths to work in conjunction with the states to make sure that they get it right. And when you have that sort of relationship and that back and forth that enables for the free flow of ideas, you can get great ideas from the state level. We've got some tremendous thinkers in the state regulatory ranks who oftentimes bring their ideas to the commission. And we absolutely have utilized some of that input that we have gotten. Similarly, I was able to share some of the experiences that I had. I got some really cool experiences because of the work I did to bring FERC into the a little bit more closely into the intelligence community, to share some of that with some of our state regulatory counterparts who hadn't previously really focused on a lot of these issues. And so there's no question that is at the heart of cooperative federalism, right? Is that the federal government working closely with state counterparts, having those lines of communication open and available, and having that free flow of ideas. I really think the pandemic was so devastating on so many fronts, but one of the areas in which it was beneficial is I do think that we became far more adept at virtual communications. And so it used to be I would only see my state regular counterparts, periodically when at these meetings or when they would come to Washington. As we got more adept at virtual communications, I was in constant contact with state leaders all around the country, and my colleagues were as well. And I think those connections that were built will only be strengthened here into the future.